First Mackowski of Emerging Civil War. I'm at the Spring Hill battlefield, or what little of it still exists. This is a plot that it was preserved by the American Battlefield Trust. Kudos to them. We're going to talk a little bit about the controversy here at Spring Hill as we take a walk up there and explore a little bit about what remains of the battlefield and the battle. Right now we're standing next to what was historically known as Rally Hill Road. Patrick Cleburne's division advancing from the east comes here and aligns here and southward as they're going to make an advance across this field toward the west. Cleburne's Corps Commander Benjamin Cheatham is under orders from Hood to cut the Columbia Pike, which is in that direction just over a mile or so. In doing so, he can cut off John Schofield's Federal Army from reaching Nashville. The lead division of Schofield's army under David Stanley does get to Spring Hill and deploy. They're going to backtrack as the Confederates approach. But if Cheatham can sever that pike, he then has the opportunity to let Hood destroy portions of Schofield's army in detail. Now, I don't know if you can see behind me, but right up in this little corner of the trail is a bench. And it's there because this is a steep-ass hill. As I'm climbing up and up and up, I'm going to need a place to sit when I get there. From the top, we can see the federal deployment a little bit. Lane's brigade off in the distance past that barn. Updike's brigade on the far side of town, past that big tree. Town itself by this tower. We'll zoom in there a little bit. And then there's some federal artillery over here in this direction. And because of the way the Federals deploy, when Cleburne starts moving west, he actually starts getting drawn to the northwest. And as more Confederate reinforcements come out of the field, Cheatham directs them northward so that they actually end up to the east of the city, and he gets distracted from his mission of cutting off the pike. So let's go back down the hill, see if we can straighten some of this out. By the way, shout out to the American Battlefield Trust. They've preserved 195 acres here at Spring Hill. This parcel really kind of preserves the advance of Lowry's brigade. If we go down the Saturn Parkway here, this is going to follow Govan and Granburn's Texans as they advance as part of Cleburne's move. You can see here on the flip side of the ridge, all this is really turned into shopping centers. So much of the battlefield is gone now. Had Cleburne advanced all the way to the Columbia Pike, he would have found himself in the middle of this shopping center, which of course wasn't here at the time. So you can see how much of the Spring Hill battlefield has been lost. I found a bookstore, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. But he would have been coming from my rear, heading toward the camera, and the Columbia Pike off in that direction. But instead, he ends up getting pulled out of position. And as more federal forces backtrack from the town, which is up in that direction, they start kind of hitting him in the flanks as Confederate reinforcements arrive on the field. Instead of shifting west to cut off the pike, they shift north, ending up on the east side of town against these federal reinforcements that have been harassing him. So then you've got kind of the battle getting drawn up into that direction instead of, as Hood intended, off in that direction. He wants the Columbia Pike cut off, but instead the Federals draw him into a fight up closer to town. That's going to allow the rest of Schofield's column coming from the south, behind me, north, to get into Spring Hill and continue northward. So it's going to be hugely problematic that Cleburne finds himself unable to get all the way over here and instead drawn more up toward the north. When Hood finally arrived at the battlefield toward dusk, he's going to make his headquarters a place called Oak Lawn. You can see it behind me. It's private property, although there is an interpretive marker in the front yard, so don't trespass, but you can stop and read the sign. Cheatham is going to come up here and meet him. Cheatham will meet him, and the two of them will talk, trying to figure out what to do. By this point, dark has settled across the battlefield. Hood still has not achieved his objective of cutting off the Columbia Turnpike. And so he's actually going to order Cheatham to still try to do that. But Cheatham is very reluctant to be involved in any sort of night attack. He was involved in one at Chickamauga. Things got pretty botched up for him there. He doesn't want to run into that same sort of problem. And so he is not going to push the attack. And as a result, Confederate forces are going to be encamped just yards away from the Columbia Turnpike, even as Schofield's army, moving from south to north, is going to file right by them. The Federal soldiers are going to be able to see the Confederate campfires. The Confederates are going to be able to hear the Federals as they move. There'll be a lot of recriminations, a lot of finger pointing as a result of this, because Schofield's army will be able to escape. But I think Hood sums it up best, as my colleague Lee White in his book, Let Us Die Like Men, says, Hood says that it was the best move of his entire Army career, and it ultimately came to naught because the Federals are able to escape. Now, one has to wonder, what would Hood have done had he cut off this turnpike? Had he had Schofield's army trapped outside of stronger defenses further north? But he's still got a portion of Federal forces on one side of him. The rest of Schofield's army south of him, the Union 4th Corps having the rest of Schofield coming up. So Hood would have been kind of between a rock and a hard place in some respects. But let's just say that he does end up somehow defeating Schofield in detail here at Spring Hill. So maybe he's got a more intact army as he heads toward Nashville. But those Nashville defenses are still waiting for him. They're still formidable. And so things are going to get pretty hot up in Nashville no matter what. But this presents one of the most intriguing what-ifs of the Civil War. What if John Bell Hood had been able to cut off Schofield's army? What would have happened here at Spring Hill? For Emerging Civil War, I'm Chris Mackowski.